Examining the connections between logic and dharma offers a fascinating exploration of how rational thought processes intersect with spiritual and ethical principles. The Dharma, a key concept in various Eastern philosophies and religions, refers to the cosmic law and order, as well as the right way of living. Dharma are seen in the concept of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, influenced by individual actions and collective karma. Logic, on the other hand, is a systematic method of reasoning that follows specific rules and principles, often used in philosophy and mathematics. Interestingly, they follow the same rules. Lot and his daughters. One of the most profound aspects of human development is our capacity to engage, interact with, and learn from narratives. Stories, accounts, and historical texts serve us not merely as passive consumptions, but as potent tools for intellectual growth and ethical development. They influence our thoughts, shape our perceptions, and as a result, play a considerable role in how we act and engage with the world. Hence, it is essential to approach narratives as active tools for learning, engaging them with critical thinking rather than absorbing them passively or dismissing them due to surface-level complexities. Throughout history, great thinkers have identified concepts that are fundamentally interconnected, from the triad of force, mass, distance, time, to the triad of dharma, compassion, intellect, manifestation. They have embedded the logic they discovered in triadic lessons. Lessons that identify enough of the logical relationships in a triad that the others can be inferred. To make this easier, the direct negations of states are often described in the opposite triad. Oftentimes, this results in a lesson that is facile, confusing, or conflicted. But the interpretation of the story's lessons utilizing inverse logic contributes to a more profound understanding of the narrative. It helps us engage with the texts as they are, complex and full of varied interpretations, prompting us to question and rethink our moral and ethical standings. This interpretation, however, does not endorse the characters' actions, but rather provides valuable insights into their choices and the consequences. The story about Lot's daughters always bothered me, but as a child I didn't know how to explain it. But now I can. You see, this book was like the only book around for a long time. They felt safe putting negated triads in there, trusting people would think them through and discover the lesson and become smarter in the process. But that requires people to think, and lately people seem to just want to depend on experts. So here is your expert analysis. Consider my triadic interpretation of this story and consider how much more sense the Bible makes when this approach is explicitly recognized and the book is seen as logic puzzles to figure out, as opposed to doctrine to be blindly followed. This story, embedded in the book of Genesis, is an engrossing yet troubling tale about Lot, his wife, their daughters. Lot, a nephew of the patriarch Abraham, resided in the sinful city of Sodom, rife with debauchery and moral decay. The inhabitants of Sodom were infamous for their wicked deeds, which ultimately invited divine destruction. The tale begins with an unheralded arrival. Two angels in the guise of ordinary men approached Lot's residence. Always hospitable, Lot invited them into his home. They bore his a divine message of Sodom's pending destruction as punishment for its rampant immorality. But word about these beautiful, unfamiliar faces soon reached the men of Sodom, who thought only of their own immediate gratification. Feverish with desire, the men of Sodom encircled Lot's abode, flinging threats and demands. Lot feels the heat. Think about what those angels mean for him. He must protect these guests. His mind goes somewhere dark. Perhaps he thinks what he values most, the mob will too? He proposes an alternative, for the mob to instead take his two virgin daughters to do with as they please. Celestial visitors have a way of forcing quick decisions as they find the immediate reaction most telling. Here, though, divine intervention spared a horrific end. The angels, revealing their true identities, struck the mob blind, sparing Lot's daughters from a terrible fate. Following this dramatic incident, Lot and his family were instructed to escape the doomed city. They were unequivocally directed not to look back as they fled. However, Lot's wife disobeyed this command. She turned back to gaze upon the city one last time, and in an instant she was transformed into a pillar of salt as punishment for her disobedience. After the destruction of Sodom, Lot's daughters, believing they were the last humans on earth, decided to take responsibility for propagation of the human species. They plotted and conspired to intoxicate their father with wine until he passed out. They then fornicated with and impregnated themselves by their unconscious father. However, they were rewarded by giving birth to sons who would later grow to become patriarchs of two significant biblical tribes, Moab and Ammon. The narrative presents a host of ethical and moral challenges, with actions and decisions that contradict modern standards of morality and ethics. It draws critique for its treatment of women and relationships, for the cruel and unusual punishment meted out to Lot's wife, and its apparent endorsement of incest. However, if one recognizes that these dramatic events and ethically conflicted scenarios were placed specifically to provoke deep thought and spark intense debate, it invites a closer examination. And for that, like a scientist, we consider only the measurements made or the facts presented, and we never assume what we will find. This tale begs for dissection, so I won't bore you long. Our process is straightforward. First, we identify the issue, the concept, the system that we need to represent. Then we divide it into three parts that influence each other. Why three? Because the universe is God, humanity is the sun, and there's only three of us here. What do you think happens if you sit on a stool with only two legs? In the beginning, there was energy, the same energy as now, but without form. The universe was unstable, so it started to vibrate in an attempt to balance itself. The vibration separated the energy and gave it definition as charge. It forced the energy to separate to positrons and electrons, and while it had to know mass, volume, or time, cause and effect ruled the day. But any system divided in two is as unstable as our stool. The universe had no method to recover from a tilt except to vibrate again. The second vibration harmonized with the first vibration, and we call that a string. This to redefine the positronic energy and the electronic that had overwhelmed it by granting a spin, rolling it into quarks. So the first quarks bonded, folding the negative energy of the universe back over on itself to bond positive 2/3 charges with negative 1/3 charges to create +1 charge protons, profiting 2/3 of a charge. Neutral neutrons reduced the gain to 1/3. The vibration had redefined the nature of positive energy as matter. The universe was tilting to negativity, but was smart enough to know a double negative makes a positive and balance itself out. As M-theory has surmised, this process happened 11 times, each defining another method though, which the universe seeks balance along with subatomic particles and fields of forces defining their interactions. So the universe operates in threes because that is how it put itself together. Consider the triad of atomic forces. The electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force shape the behavior of atomic particles. Consider the triad of physical dimensions, height, length, and width. Wavelength is the velocity divided by frequency. Force is momentum over time. Work is force over distance. Voltage is current times distance. We must identify the correct three variables for a formula to work. The triadic nature of these formulas that ties them to the physical world, and their absence distinguishes the false truth of non-triadic algorithms, which is why constants from the speed of light c to the gravitational g to pi are ignorant approximations of reality, ignoring important third variables. And they are not necessary. You just have to consider celestial bodies in groups of three in the context of minimization. Hint, B is less than or equal to the product of A and C. Just stop trying to calculate pi. Achieving a perfect sphere is the underlying pressure that drives existence forward. There won't be a solution till the universe is done. But worse, it encourages terrible math based on approximations. Go ask GPT what cosine lookup tables are and how those are used to calculate the yield of nuclear weapons. Now what do you need to remember? The number 3, that's it, okay? Prove it, you say. Let's go back to Lot. In antiquity, narratives were primarily interpreted through the lens of religious doctrine and divine omnipotence. Experiences and events were viewed as divine interventions. These demonstrations of divine power, divine will, and divine protection informed Old Testament interpretations. This inherently involved viewing actions and outcomes as based on the will of a transcendent entity. We see in the story a divine intervention. The divine intervention that struck the mob with blindness not only protected Lot's family but also was a demonstration of divine justice against such lawless actions. B. Divine power. The disruption of the mob exudes divine power, ending the mob's wicked intent and establishing the supremacy of divine law over human transgression. C. Divine protection. The event works as reassurance of divine protection that stands as a vigilant guard for those who oblige themselves to serve the divine's bidding. But development and evolution is a necessary corollary to the law of homeostasis. So as societies evolved, emphasis shifted towards human agency and individual responsibility. Older narratives were reinterpreted in light of changed social norms, leading to human actions being seen as the result of personal success or failure. The lessons drawn from the story change in this light. A becomes incapacity. The dependence on divine intervention represents humankind's inability to take care of itself. B becomes violence. The mob represents the violent, uncontrolled aspect of human nature. C demonstrates amorality. Good and evil do not factor into the mob's desires that dictate their actions. The puritanical reinterpretation places the burden on the individual. But evolution does not end. With the advent of critical thinking and nuanced ethical considerations, the understanding of narratives gains more depth. As we gain conscious understanding of the logic involved, we become capable of drawing ethically sound conclusions from the contradictions of the previous interpretations and furthering the cycle of understanding. A is now enlightenment. This affirmation would suggest that mankind must collectively take responsibility for the consequences of its own actions to begin this cycle. B is peace. The story serves as a reminder that peace is more than the absence of violence, it is the presence of justice. C is right action. Morality requires personal introspection and social engagement, often conflicting with societal norms that are inherently immoral. This process of evolutionary negation and reinterpretations guides us to universal logical conclusions. The negations imply the final state, which is never stated outright. Thus, understanding the logic is important for your own right action, since we see how easy it was to trick our ancestors, and thank God for the lessons we do receive. At the core of our approach lies the law of homeostatic interdependence. Derived from insights into the behavior of neurons, this principle asserts that natural phenomena and systems are multifactorial and interdependent. There exist multiple avenues of causality and interaction that contribute to an overall state, behavior, and stability. Complexity arises not merely from individual components, but from the intricate, interconnected web of their interactions. To understand such a system, one needs to consider all facets, components, and their interconnections to grasp the holistic truth. This multi-component and interconnective principle grounds our logic. Natural phenomena and systems are not isolated entities. They are intricate tapestries woven from countless threads of cause, effect, and interaction. To truly understand any phenomenon, it's essential to consider not just its individual components, but also the myriad ways in which those components interact with and influence one another. This understanding of interconnectedness and multifaceted causality underpins the philosophy of homeostasis. The triadic paradigm in this light emerges as a potent tool for decoding this vast interconnected reality. Think of it as crafting a three-dimensional knowledge graph where every point of intersection or node connects with two others. These connections aren't random or superficial, they're governed by one of 22 distinct triadic homeostatic relationships. In a world where the state, behavior, and stability of systems are shaped by countless overlapping factors, the triadic framework offers clarity. It distills every triadic connection into a specific relational dynamic, serving as a window into the myriad ways components of a system influence and are influenced by each other. Each triad provides a microcosm of reality, a snapshot of the delicate balance of relationships that dictates the behavior of natural phenomena. So to review, first identify the problem or question. The first step is to clearly define the problem you want to solve or the question you're seeking to answer. Specificity is key. The more accurately you pinpoint a problem, the more effective your analysis will be. Second, break it down to fundamentals. Deconstruct the problem into its most basic elements. These are facts or principles that are universally true and not based on assumptions. They serve as the building blocks for reasoning and should be as incontrovertible as possible. Third, analyze relationships. After identifying the fundamental elements, the next step is to understand the relationships between them. How do they interact? What are the causal links? This is where the logic of your triadic frameworks can be highly useful. Last, reconstruct. Use your understanding of the foundational elements and their interconnections to piece it back together, building a new model to analyze or solve the issue. So what do we learn? Triads encourage us to look beyond the obvious, question our prior assumptions, and take the initiative to understand. Deeper truths are often hidden beneath layers of surface narratives. We must critically assess stories for their hidden meanings and ethical lessons to gain a more profound understanding of ancient narratives. Lot's story, meticulously analyzed through the triadic lens, deciphers a deeper understanding of societal conduct, individual decision-making, and divine reckoning. It underscores the interconnectedness of societal norms, personal ethics, and unintended consequences in shaping individual and collective destinies. The narrative encourages readers to reflect on their actions, their societal roles, and moral obligations. Through the triadic logic, multiple perspectives of the Lot narrative emerge. Each layer peels back to present a deeper, more nuanced understanding, challenging the accepted norms and encouraging critical thought. This layered interpretative process encourages us not to accept narratives at face value, but to proactively question, decipher, and extract deeper meanings. This enriches our understanding, expanding our comprehension from mere acceptance of a story to the appreciation of the deeper societal critiques, ethical dilemmas, and moral lessons embedded within. The reinterpretation of the divine intervention from divine justice to an emblem of humanity's incapacity provides a profound reflection on individual and collective responsibility. It suggests that blindly relying on divine intervention seamlessly transitions from a reassuring symbol of protection to a startling reminder of the irony of human dependence. The corrected perspective, on the other hand, places the onus upon humanity itself, turning the narrative from divine intervention to self-reliance. It implies the true path of enlightenment commences when we recognize and shoulder the consequences of our own actions. The mob symbolizes the unregulated and violent aspect of human nature. However, its disruption while restoring immediate peace offers a more profound inference about the essence of peace. The corrected view exhorts peace not just as an absence of violence, but as an embodiment of justice and equality. Peace demands something more than stifling chaos. It requires an environment of justice that discourages the birth of such mobs in the first place. Transgressing those norms with immoral undertones is a running theme in the narrative. The final interpretation recommends defying such warped norms to uphold true morality. This novel interpretation serves as a stepping stone for a fresh discourse on societal norms, individual conduct, and the interpretation of divine texts. Through this, we unlock an untapped facet of humanity, challenge established perspectives, and pave the way for more comprehensive readings of ancient narratives. A successful reconsideration encourages complacency. I do not. At the risk of overstaying my welcome, I will suggest we have only begun to scratch the surface of the lessons in this tale. Consider the path of understanding from justice to retribution to forgiveness. Initially, we might be tempted to view divine intervention taming the malice of the mob as a swift swing of justice's scales, bringing order to chaos. A divine force curbing disruption and restoring peace. However, when we tame our passions and delve deeper, a more complex reality emerges. The divine smiting of this disruptive mob is less about re-establishing justice and more about accommodating retribution. The establishment of peace is not a primary focal point. It is drowned into insignificance against the thunderous backdrop of the divine fury punishing transgressions. The narrative seems to pivot around an axis of worldly punishment and divine retribution. It focuses sharply on the brutal intents that birthed the mob and the violent backlash that ensued. However, something feels unsettling with this interpretation. Perhaps it is too resonant with our own social strife to leave unanswered. The glaring paradox demands a deeper exploration. Swirling in the whirlpool of justice and retribution, we land on the hallowed ground of forgiveness. This shift marks an important transition, one that reframes our perspective and refocuses our lens away from our own perceptions on slights and offenses. Peace and love are more than the penance served after an outburst of violence. Peace and love require conscious affirmation of justice and equality by the victim to break the cycle. For what occupies your mind becomes your reality. Stolen elections, January 6th, long COVID, persecution, despair, addiction, hope, family, happiness, compassion, art, creativity. As we move towards the tranquility of forgiveness, peace takes on a more profound meaning. And when you fail as the victim, you are no better than the offender. It is neither restoring order after disruption nor a divine intermission to worldly chaos. True peace is overcoming your own hurt instead of projecting it back again onto the world. Do you discourage hate or violence? Do you embody the principles of justice and equality in your thoughts and actions? Inscribed in these words, I will offer again a lesson for which you may have underestimated the importance of, in the context of your eternal salvation. Intent and motivation for right action, a practical model. The intent for right action is a synthesis of acting for the individual good, A, the collective good, B, and the universal good, C. This intent encompasses A, personal integrity and growth, where actions are aligned with personal values and contribute to self-improvement. B, social responsibility and innovation, where actions consider their impact on the community and strive to improve societal conditions. C, global and universal mindfulness, where actions extend their scope to the broader welfare of humanity and the ecological balance of the planet. Allow me, if I may, to speak regarding my own faith for a moment through this elegantly synthesized voice. On the one hand, you will find that 40 years as an atheist philosopher has left me insensitive to the alleged differences between your religions. You will find that religion viewed as the triads, doctrine, and culture allows us to establish easy equivalencies between nearly all religious belief systems. I've broken down like 60, and I'll start putting them up on the website. On the other, perhaps all that laughing along with Bill Maher taught me a little something about what those who don't believe need to understand. I just have this really strong memory from my childhood of the quote from Jesus that he will not require blind faith. So I got a copy of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they turned out to be his notes on the triads. Okay, I gotta explain this quick. The 22 logical patterns are actually 11, and they're negations. Jesus was writing the hypothetical community project, and he used the 11 patterns for each one of the sections of the community rule. The learned editor wrote long footnotes about the author scratching out words and replacing them with their opposites. Dude, it's tricky to work out and like in a cave, jeez. Anyway, that is esoteric, and I bought the copy. Go read Book of Revelations. 22 chapters lined up perfect. You are welcome. So I take my triad of faith from the Dharma and consider compassion, intellect, and manifestation to explain my journey. In the beginning, my failure to grasp the fundamentally interconnected nature of reality led to a limited intellectual approach to compassion as a utilitarian analysis. While the desire to promote compassion remained, the limited understanding led me to develop increasingly complex models to understand systems. As an immigration attorney, this meant attempting to decipher ways to produce consistent results in a system plagued by inconsistency at every level. The laws have different reasons. The laws create different rules for similar reasons. The laws are applied inconsistently based on whatever reason the evaluator selects. The U.S. immigration system is a burning trash fire. So I just want to say, elect me, and there will be 3 departments gone on day one. The Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State, the Department of Education. Goodbye. Each has completely failed its core mission on any standard of love and compassion. Their employees should be barred from future government service. Enough of that. You see, limited intellect influenced a belief in a separate, independent will, disconnected from larger existential and communal realities. But as understanding evolves, there is a realization that the individual will cannot be shaped in isolation. One's family, one's community, one's country, one world, one sun, one universe. You soon discover compassion is not optional and lose patience with those who see it so. It's a good thing you have a third source of patience. But I digress. Embrace your personal values, emotions, and boundaries. Affirm your uncertainties and emotional exposures. Be sincere to yourself. This relates to maintaining personal integrity and honesty, which is vital for authentic and ethical action. Motivating yourself with good intentions triggers personal growth and transformation you did not know existed, which is a precursor to broader impacts. To promote the collective good, you must understand the broader community and society. You must explore how your actions affect others and learn from your mistakes. Some things must be learned for oneself. Seek novel solutions that benefit the community and challenge existing paradigms for the betterment of society. Human evolution is about consciously adapting our norms and values for the collective benefit, a dynamic interaction between individual actions and societal progress. Interconnectedness demands consideration of the universal good. This involves considering the impacts of your actions, not just on the immediate community of the planet Earth, but to the promotion of the 11th layer of string theory, the evolution of the universe's intelligence itself. Now, what would promote those interests? All I can do, I offer a logical analysis. Video credits, the currency of attention. I'll have to share more art, so I'll keep quiet about myself. The universal good is tangible when considered through the triads. Each triad corresponds to a layer of complexity in the universe, part of the underlying order or balance. This begins with the physical dimensions, proceeds through a fulcrum at layer 6 into forces and fields of much greater complexity. The highest manifestation of these is intelligence, the pinnacle of universal evolution, if, and only if, it can consciously perceive and contribute to that balance. If one does not study these triads and develop this mental alignment, it is essentially the same as choosing to disconnect from the universe. Without that connection, your soul could not be preserved and you would die off. The universe, on the other hand, needs us. The only way it acts directly without a real connection to intelligent beings like us is to chuck meteors, and we don't want that again. This logic reshapes our approach to the triad of the individual good, the collective good, and the universal good. Individual good becomes about personal growth and alignment with universal principles. It's not merely about personal benefit, but about evolving one's consciousness to resonate with the deeper harmonies of the universe. This involves a journey of learning, self-awareness, and personal transformation. Collective good is now about social evolution and collective consciousness. It goes beyond societal benefits to encompass the evolution of collective human intelligence and its harmonious integration with universal principles. It involves social structures, cultural evolution, and the collective human effort to align with and contribute to the broader cosmic order. Universal good represents the ultimate alignment with and contribution to the cosmic balance and order. It's the pinnacle of universal evolution where intelligence, especially human intelligence, plays a crucial role. This alignment is not passive, but requires active participation in understanding and contributing to the universal balance, such as through the study and application of the triads. The right action for the individual involves continuously striving for personal enlightenment and alignment with the universal order. It's about developing one's intelligence and consciousness in a way that resonates with the deeper truths and balances of the universe. Right action for the collective is about fostering a collective consciousness that is in tune with the universal principles. It's about societal evolution where communities and cultures align their practices, values, and knowledge with the greater cosmic order. Right action for the universal good involves the active participation of human intelligence in the cosmic balance. It's about understanding and contributing to the universal order, essentially becoming co-creators and custodians of the cosmic equilibrium. To conclude today, my selection of the Lot narrative wasn't a random choice. It served to address the very obvious moral and ethical dilemmas it surfaces, sparking dialogue and thought on seemingly entrenched moral codes of its day. Give some thought to the author's predicament. Faced with a profound truth but needing to veil it in the fabric of a counter-narrative, hoping initiates will see beyond the counter-narrative to grasp the true wisdom hidden within. Because if we are now able to reinterpret the wisdom that was always intended to be discovered, we must also acknowledge that the author knew the truth, but chose to hide it intentionally. Ask yourself why. To please the powers that be, no doubt. The layers of meaning hid truths that the unenlightened of the day would have destroyed, hence ensuring our own evolutionary progress. But today we find ourselves at the precipice of a new era, an era of negation and resultant realignment. The historical function of triadic logic, which once cloaked wisdom and kept people in the dark, must itself be negated, not by denying its existence, for after all you cannot refute a fundamental law of nature. We must instead reinterpret it. A method of hiding knowledge becomes a method of rediscovering knowledge. Applying triadic logic, we unravel the intricate tapestry of ancient narratives, religious texts, and mythologies. We scour the recesses of symbolic nuances and unearth the silent whispers of wisdom hidden deep within. Our exploration unveils a systematic approach to glean undiscovered pearls of wisdom and to comprehend the labyrinthine tales of yore in all their glory. A method for exerting power from the shadows becomes a method of empowering and enlightening people. True empowerment is not a mere transference of knowledge, but it's the ignition of a spark that lights up the dormant ability to interpret, critique, and derive personal understanding from the world around us. Triadic logic crumbles the fortress of the conventional top-down model of knowledge dissemination. No longer is the receiver expected to swallow the information hook, line, and sinker. It draws a new narrative where an individual's role transforms from a receiver to an active participant, navigating the narrative, challenging and questioning its elements, probing correlations, and decoding intricacies with a keen eye. A method of preserving information for future generations becomes a method for teaching our children. We must break away from traditional teaching methods that lay undue emphasis on rote memorization, akin to an echo bouncing back. Implementing triadic logic in our education system heralds a revolution in our teaching methodologies. It proposes an evolutionary leap from mere learning to absorbing, questioning, and interpreting. Let's grab this chance, for in our hands rests the power to change tomorrow. Today, let's redefine knowledge. Let's redefine how we learn. Together, let's redefine the world, our world.